Fit for Life Radio, episode number 113.
That sounds right. It's 113 today as well. That's the date.
January 13th.
How's that feel? Coming at you from the beaches of Cabo. Wouldn't that be nice, though?
Mm-hmm. Nah.
Because it's 31 degrees here, bro.
But then it makes you appreciate 71.
It does. But it's probably 82 in Cabo.
Well, the other day we had, it was in the 20s. So then yesterday when it was like 35.
It did feel better, though. I went outside and I was like, this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually kind of a nice day.
Put some shorts on.
I feel like, when it's that cold, the wind is what makes a difference. Because if it's just, like, real still, it's not that bad. You can deal with it. But when the wind is there, it, like, cuts through all your clothes, and it's like you're basically naked. Like, you might as well not even be wearing anything. That's what I struggle with.
Bones get cold?
Your bones get cold. I don't want cold bones, man.
Nah. Well, in case you didn't know, we're your hosts, your coaches, Gary.
We are your coaches.
Gary and Will.
Gary and Will.
And today we are going to do a little ditty.
About Jack and Diane.
Client conversations.
I feel like we should dim the lights for this.
Mm-hmm.
Client conversations.
So just little conversations we've had with clients.
Yeah, recently.
Just like it sounds.
And things we think maybe people would benefit from hearing.
Mm-hmm. Because most people, it's hard for them to ask questions and have conversations because they don't want to feel like it was a dumb question or conversation.
Yeah.
But the reality is the cliche, there is no dumb
There really
question.
isn't.
And normally we always come away, with the realization that, man, a lot of people would benefit from hearing this. We should start a podcast.
Like every single time, and
and tell people.
Under 13 episodes later.
So today we're going to touch on a few conversations, three little ditties. The first one is we had a client and he's been coming a couple months, 2-3 months, and he got the first where, it's hard to notice things yourself.
It really is.
Because you see yourself
every single day.
But eventually his wife, noticed some gains, his back. He was changing and his back was all muscly. Getting leaner, right? So more more tone. And he was excited about that. When you start getting compliments and other people noticing it, it really gets you fired up. And he mentioned how it really got him thinking, I can take this to the next level, right? And I think everyone has that happen, right? Where you do something, some good happens, positive feedback, and you're like, let's go to the next level.
Yeah, I can do more.
What's more? Maybe if I go harder or push even faster, good things will happen. But the reality is, the next level is just consistency.
Yeah, for most people.
Yeah, once you establish sustainability, so an approach, say, he's going 3 days a week. Well, don't now all of a sudden try to go 6, because now what if you can't and then you fall off completely or you burn out? The reality is you're getting results. For most people's goals, a moderate amount's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then it's just, now you're seeing these things because, this is the first time you've exercised for 2-3 months. So all you have to keep doing is now imagine if you do it for 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it consistently. Doesn't even have to be perfect, whatever perfect is, but it really just has to be a habit.
Yeah. And the problem is we live in a society where beast mode and
no days off,
hard work is celebrated. Think about it. He's such a hard worker. No days off. Sleep is for when you're dead. All these things. So no one ever celebrates moderation.
No.
Right? Or efficiency.
Or he's a smart worker.
Yeah. And the same thing applies to exercise, fitness, nutrition. You don't make it harder than it needs to be. Right?
Yeah. And don't think that you need to do more. Like, if you're getting results, why do
change
more?
Anything? Yeah.
Like, there's really no reason to if you're continuing to improve and get better, because clearly what you're doing is sustainable. if it feels like nothing and you feel like maybe you could or should do more. Just stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yep. And this client specifically, he comes 3 days a week. If I can go 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, get in that bread and butter amount of resistance training, a little bit of conditioning, then
bread and butter.
That's good, right? And now, again, fast forward, that's what he's been doing. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing results. Can I do more? What else should I do? Nothing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And just make sure that you're doing the best you can in that period. That's it.
Yeah. And I think the important takeaway from this conversation lesson is also you have to find what's sustainable. Because in the past, he's had times where, he's never really consistently done it this long, but he also would maybe try, I got to do something every day. Or I'm going to try to do it at home. Or I'm going to try this form of exercise. And the reality is none of those things he tried before were sustainable. But now it's kind of the perfect storm. The program at our gym, Coastal Strength and Fitness, it's like group training. You're more invested than, say, a $10 a month Planet Fitness. There's coaches to show you what you're doing. The workouts are planned. You just need to show up, and that works for him. And it's got him this far. So then the reality is, just keep doing it. Don't. Now it almost starts to feel effortless when it does become habit, and that almost freaks people out.
I think it does. When there's when it gets easier, I think people get worried that because it's so easy, they're not doing enough. Like, this should be hard. This should be a struggle, and I think that's prevalent everywhere, like in everybody's lives, that like if something isn't overwhelming or very difficult, or we're not sweating to do it every day, that it's not worth it. And that's just not true.
In fact, you want to strive to make those big important things the easier things to do in your life, right?
Yeah.
And make the meaningless stuff harder to do, right? We make it too easy to go on social media. Right? We have notifications on our phone, and it brights up, and it's colorful, and it's easy, and it's quick, and it's in our pocket the whole time. What if you, put passcodes on your apps or deleted them off your phone, and you had to go on a computer to get on? Now you're making that harder, and then, make your exercise easier by scheduling that in, getting notifications for that, having someone, a buddy or coach, follow up with you, and make it easier. Yeah.
That's it. Make it easy, be consistent. And don't worry when things start to feel like they're not, difficult. That's fine. Then you can, when that's kind of an automatic process, you can almost put that energy elsewhere into making something else just as efficient and easy. And that's how we kind of build up habits, and make sure that we are, doing the things that are important to us and not filling our time with, maybe filling your time with 6 days a week of working out takes away from something else. But only doing that 3 days allows you to do another thing that you really do enjoy. And so you're making room for two things by being as efficient as possible with this.
Yep.
So that's another thing to consider, is that will rob you of something else in your life.
Yeah. So the next level is always consistency.
Absolutely.
And the level beyond that is consistency.
Yeah.
Now obviously we're not talking about your professional athlete.
Yeah,
right?
or training for a sport.
An Olympic athlete who has a 5-year window to perform at the peak. That's completely different. Now everyone wants to think that they're a professional athlete, but
most of us are not.
Exactly. So once you come to grips with that, you can be more effective and efficient. So another conversation we had was along the lines of
functional training. So I was talking with a client at the gym, and this person, we had talked about progressing, and they actually had listened to another podcast that we did on how much weight to lift and just knowing when to progress. I wish I knew the episode number of that, but it was just kind of outlining how do you know how far to push it, what weights you should be at, a system for that. Anyways, and so, they realized that maybe they should be, pushing their weights a little bit more because it had been stagnant for a while. And then we kind of got on the topic of functional training, because, we kind of started talking about different exercises. and they said that they wanted to make sure their training was functional, right? And then, I asked, like, what does that mean to you? And, they weren't completely sure, So I think the term functional training has been thrown around so much, and, like, we even did it as well years ago, thinking that we had to do, like, things that carry over directly to real life, like.
Or again, the problem is, or directly to a sport or activity. When the reality is, and there was a big phase where, so let's say someone's a football player. Well, let's try to mimic football movements with exercises in the gym. This should feel more functional. When the reality is, like, when you're in the gym, it's quite functional to strengthen all your muscle groups and movement patterns. And then, hey, you know what the most functional football stuff would be? How about just
football stuff?
Yeah, playing football, right?
Yeah.
So you get stronger in the gym, increase your pressing and pulling strength, and then when you go practice and play football, you will be stronger when you start, pushing people around.
Or
and
pushing the sleds on the field, things like that are directly like your skill work for football. You don't have to do that in the gym.
Yeah. And then you saw where this, that you start to see all the people who are, like, standing on a Bosu ball while juggling and squatting, while doing a knee kick, right? And the reality is that stuff actually that was coined functional training was really just less efficient training.
Yeah.
Because think about it. Say you're doing a squat on a Bosu ball. Now, because of the unstable surface, you have to use less weight than you would normally use if you were squatting on a stable surface. So you're actually just not going to get as strong with those muscles involved with squatting, right?
Yeah, because your body's stabilizing that.
So now you're not going to have that extra lower body strength that then would carry over into movements that are quote unquote functional, and realize all functional is it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a tennis player, well, overhead swinging a racket motion is functional.
Yeah, and lateral movement is functional.
Whereas if you're not a tennis player, that's not necessarily.
Yeah, when you're ever
going
to have to do a very strong overhead swing like that.
So the reality is, most people, especially Gen Pop people, over time, you want to, in the gym, a good program, smart program, your body is just basically like a bunch of levers, right?
That's it.
And there's movement patterns. And you really just want to be strong and capable in all the movement patterns. Make sure you're putting your body kind of through those ranges, right? So the problem when you start nitpicking, like, oh, I want to do this exercise because I deem it as functional.
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's one scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
And you may leave out an entire muscle group, right? And then you're actually doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, and I think that a good thing to maybe think about when you're trying to decide what's functional or not. Really, all we're trying to do is make sure all of our joints are moving like they're supposed to. Every one of them, right?
Yeah.
So, that includes like compound movements like a squat or a bench press, and that might be a curl as well, which something like a curl I think has been very maybe demonized in the functional community as like, you don't need to do that because it's not functional. It's just for aesthetics. But the reality is strengthening that muscle also strengthens the tendons, which supports your shoulder and elbow and make other things more safe. And they make them more effective, right? If you're doing some pull-ups, well, your biceps do need to be strong, and those tendons do need to be strong in order to do that. And if you want to make it a real-life example, if you're climbing a tree, having stronger biceps is going to absolutely help you with that movement, despite people deeming it like purely a aesthetic or, just a show type muscle.
But the reality is, as I sit here, that's a movement like, my arm bends at the elbow joint.
Yeah, like
a bicep curl.
We don't have like useless movements or useless joints on our body. Like they're always used, and being able to keep every single muscle strong and every joint stable is really going to give, everybody, but like your normal average person, just a better quality of life.
Yeah. And I think the bigger mistake in reality really is, and what happens in the typical, maybe we'll use the bro example of you go in and just work the mirror muscles. So you just do curls and bench press.
Yeah,
right?
Buys and chest, man.
So to build your buys and chest to look good at the beach. That is very unfunctional training, not because bench press and bicep curls aren't functional, but because you're not doing any legs, you're not getting any hip hinge, any knee bend, you're not getting any
back work,
no horizontal or vertical pulling. So you're leaving out tons of muscle groups, and then in balance, it means you're overworking these other ones because you're doing nothing for everything else, and that's going to be not functional because you're leaving out entire movement patterns.
Yeah, so that's a good example though of where it can be not functional because of the way you're arranging your training. So as long as you're hitting everything, and we do that in our programming, making sure we do hit a push, a pull, a hinge, a knee bend, a pull. I said a pull already.
Yeah, a
carry, a single leg. Like if you're doing all of that, like you're good. You're not going to miss anything. So
the most unfunctional thing would be leaving out or skipping or deciding you don't like, say, the pulling exercises, so you just don't push yourself on those. And you just do the same way over and over and over. That's actually would be more unfunctional than not, because you're leaving out an entire movement.
Yeah, and making sure on those movements, like you said, you are trying to get stronger, and it's not like you have to get stronger every day, but over time, if it's been 6 to 10 months and the needle hasn't moved at all, then you probably need to ramp it up a little bit and do a little bit more.
And you're just trying to, especially, non-athletes, those of us who live in our lives, you're really just trying to bulletproof your body, right? You don't want anything to be unexpected, right? Yeah, to where, how do people get hurt? Oh, they're reaching and they're grabbing their briefcase out of their back car, or they're going to pick up a toddler, and because, say, if you're inactive and haven't engaged certain muscles and kind of reach certain range of motions your body aren't used to, injuries happen, right? You're unprepared. Whereas what you're trying to do by going to the gym is prepare your body, keep your muscles and ranges of motions and joints and ligaments having to function, having to apply force, and that is what makes you resilient and functional in real life, so that you don't throw something out doing almost seemingly nothing.
Yeah. Which is how most people get injured, gardening. Probably the number one way people throw their backs out, which seems crazy, but it's because they don't normally do those types of movements and they're not strong in those types of positions. And that's what we're really working for.
So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. I hope maybe that helps reframe your mind a little bit as to what functional means.
A good wrap-up would be, don't think, especially now with Instagram visual world, like all these like crazy exercises
that look like circus
do
acts.
The basics, right? The exercises that allow your body to build, again, that strength and resilience and all the movement patterns. And then for the most part, the word functional is really just independent on, well, what is your activities?
Yeah.
Typically sports, things like that. And really the functional things for those are going to be actually playing the sport,
Yeah.
right? And leave it at that.
All right. Number
Then
3.
Another conversation we had was a question from a client asking if all sugar is the same. You know, whether it's agave,
Coconut sugar.
coconut sugar, regular sugar,
Brown sugar.
maple syrup,
Honey.
honey.
God, I love honey, though.
The reality is yes, in general, and typically in the context of why most people are asking,
Yeah.
which is like I think people want to think, oh, if I make this muffin and I use coconut sugar instead of regular
It's
sugar,
healthier than white sugar.
The reality is they're going to be about the same calories.
Yeah.
They're refined to where they're easy to overconsume. They're typically, you're not eating these things by themselves. They're typically combined with other things to make super delicious foods.
A little spoonful.
Yeah, a little.
Take
not
the
many
edge
people are,
off.
Whacking back spoonfuls of maple syrup.
Hey.
Right, you're putting it on pancakes with butter.
When I was a kid, I used to take little lumps of brown sugar out of the bag and just eat them.
Mhm.
But I was like 9, so.
Yeah, and it's because you weren't supposed to do that.
Exactly, like I was sneaking some sugar. That aside, nobody really does that.
There are some micronutrient differences, right? Like refined white sugar is basically stripped of everything.
Yeah.
Whereas like honey is going to have tons of different micronutrients and even some maybe benefits for like gut health with different bacteria, especially if it's like raw honey and things like that. So again, and those things can be helpful. And yeah, if you're going to have a ton of, you want to have sweeten up your yogurt, yeah, choose the honey. It's going to have more nutrition, right?
Yeah.
But again, if your goal, it comes back to the context, right? Is, man, I really need to stop overeating highly palatable foods. Well, yeah, if you make, again, a muffin and use honey versus regular sugar,
You're not solving
it's
any
still
problems.
going to taste super
Yeah.
delicious. It's a combination of super refined foods like butter, flour, sugar, and it's going to be just as delicious.
Yeah.
right?
So there's no like one is not better than the other in terms of calories at all. Like they're all the same. It's just
Yeah.
and then there's those minute differences that overall for most people aren't going to matter.
And here's the catch too. Sugar in the context by itself isn't necessarily bad either,
No.
right? So I think people, oh my gosh, sugar's bad, but I love sweet stuff, so I got to. No, sugar's bad because again, it's combined and makes us overeat food in general, and it is very calorie dense. But if you can manage it in the overall context of your diet,
Then it's not.
It's not like you have to completely eliminate it,
No.
right? And sugar is found naturally in fruit and things, right?
Yeah.
That's another difference too. So carbohydrates are made up of different types of carbohydrates, right? So you have fructose, sucrose, glucose, and there's a combination. There's ratios of those forms to make up the type of carb, and that's going to be different as well. So, for example, like white rice is a carb that has no sugar in it, really. It's all glucose. But everything gets broken down into glucose.
Yeah.
But then you have fruit, which is most fruit is like half fructose and half sucrose. Sucrose is half glucose and half fructose. I mean, some people may find, or there are studies that like fructose can be a little helpful in that it can be more like satiating, which, along with fiber, may be a reason why fruit is satiating.
Yeah. And why people aren't banging down 12 apples at a time.
But then that's the difference too. Like high fructose corn syrup is obviously fructose.
A lot of fructose.
Also, fructose can only be processed in our liver, whereas glucose goes straight to our bloodstream and is processed that way. And our liver has a limited capacity. So if we can, that's where then you get into, you hear fructose is bad. Well, you're only going to get but so much in a fruit, and you can only, and it's packaged with other things. Whereas if you're just drinking soda, which is all high fructose corn syrup, that's a lot of fructose at once, probably more than our liver can process, and that causes problems, or maybe the rest that it can't process basically automatically gets stored as body fat. So those, that's where all sugar is going to be at least half fructose, and consuming too much of it in massive quantities is going to
it's going to have bad effects.
It's going to have those effects, right? So if you're consuming too much, cane sugar or honey, it's going to have similar effects. Now and again, honey is going to come with some more micronutrients, so you might get that, but that's
but it still comes with the calories though.
Yeah.
So that's another part of it.
You don't really want to eat honey for like some B6 or whatever, right? Because you could just have some chicken breast and get plenty of it, right? So yeah, don't eat sugar, any form of sugar for the
nutrition. Yeah,
because ultimately it's going to be now again, this is context. Say you're a high performing, super lean, young endurance athlete who needs to eat 600 grams of carbs a day, and you say you struggle doing that with oats and apples, because again, they are so much fiber and harder to eat enough. Well, now throwing some maple syrup on your oats
is helpful.
Yeah, to get those calories you need. That's where sugar can be a superfood, right? In the context of maybe something like we just mentioned, a young athlete, high performing endurance work. Whereas someone who is sedentary, works in an office, is 50 years old, is 40 pounds overweight,
they don't need that added stuff in there.
It's not going to be that helpful.
Yeah.
Because it's just easy calories.
Yeah, it's very easy to eat. It's not satiating. And when you need a lot of food, you do want to kind of reach for those. We've done that on an episode before too.
And think about this, even if you kind of got the answer you wanted, which is, honey's way better than regular sugar. But here's the thing. Say you have a bowl of oatmeal and you add honey to it. What does it do? It makes it taste way better.
Oh, my God.
So what do you think is more likely? Can be more likely of an outcome that you would end up eating more, right? Because it tastes way better. That's what people have to realize, is that, look, most of the stuff that makes food taste better that's part of the problem, right? And that ultimately we have to learn to enjoy the not best tasting combinations in foods, because the reality is the best ones make it easy to overeat.
Yeah. All that added stuff.
So, again, that's a lot. It could be an episode in and of itself.
Sugar. We should do a sugar episode.
The short answer is there's very small differences, and on a whole, you need to ask yourself, why am I even adding sugar to my meals? Like, what's the context? If you're trying to find a way to still make cookies a major part of your diet and not a treat, then that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
Right? Now, don't get me wrong. So now we'll kind of take that out. Yeah, I would prefer, if I'm adding sugar, I like to taste the honey, right, compared to just regular refined cane sugar.
Same.
They have texture differences as well. Like coconut sugar has a very different texture than regular refined sugar. So whereas, say you are baking, right, that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of an example of a way that let's look at pancakes, right? What's one of the reasons we probably put maple syrup on pancakes? Because it's sticky and gooey, right?
Amazing.
You would rather pour liquid maple syrup on than just sprinkle
white sugar,
coconut sugar on or something, right? So as far as that goes, that's where the biggest differences are going to be between the different sugars.
Yeah, it's just the utility and how they work on your food. So that's about it. But adding sugar to a meal like that is,
that's the bigger thing. Is like it's called food reward, right? And you have to realize how much stuff we add to our meals and foods just to make it taste better, right? You have to have awareness to that. And most, believe it or not, a lot of people's, like, the calories that get them in trouble are the food reward calories.
Always.
Right? So, adding sugar to things, adding ranch dressing, right, which is fat, basically, and, things like mayonnaise and other creams and sauces, and those food reward things are typically very, very calorically dense.
And not very nutrient dense for the most part.
Nope.
Which is why they're not worth it.
So there you go. Conversations with clients.
Conversation. We should have turned the lights off for this one. Conversations.
I feel like that's how we would kind of have the intro be.
Yeah.
A whisper.
Conversation. But everybody tunes out after that because they're like, this is going to get real weird. So they just, yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully now you felt like you got to have a conversation.
I hope so. And maybe your question was answered. Maybe it's a question you've wanted to ask and just, thought like, man, this is a dumb question. If you do feel like that, seriously, there's no dumb questions. Because like we all have, different levels of knowledge, and there's so much information out there that is not correct in every direction that it's hard to know like what's true, what's real, how should I feel about these things. So definitely ask them. If you are on the fence about something or you're not completely sure, if you want to ask, about sugar. For some people, they might be like, yeah, duh. But for a lot of people, they really don't know. Because there are articles that are like, oh, use this type of sugar because it's healthy. And you're like, well, what am I supposed to believe? So feel free. We're always happy to boil things down to a very, very simple answer if we can.
Yep. And ask us questions. The conversations you want to have. We'll answer it for you the best we can. Whether you want to hear it or not.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what it is, but it's what you got to do.
All right, well, if you're in Cabo listening to this, hopefully you're not sunburnt.
Hopefully you're having a good time.
If you're somewhere cold, we feel
for you.
The reality is, though, 30 degrees. There's places that are like negative 30.
I know. That's a whole different type. You can't even go outside with that. Negative 30. It's uninhabitable.
Habitable.
Habitable. Habitable. Habitable.
Habitable.
Uninhabitable. Inhabitable. All right, we can do that all day. All right, we'll catch you next time.
All right, thanks for listening.
As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.